Hi, this is Blake.
Hi, this is Cameron. We welcome you to yet another episode of Trust Talks.
Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today we're tackling something that's been generating a ton of buzz. Blockchain and regulatory compliance.
It's a pretty hot topic for sure.
I've got this really insightful article here, The Impact of Blockchain Technology on Regulatory Compliance. Opportunities and Challenges in 2024.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah, we're going to break down all the key insights, to help everyone understand just how game-changing this tech really is.
It really is.
So, get ready, because we're going to uncover all the surprising ways blockchain is being used. We're talking everything from tracking products to verifying identities, voting even.
When you think about it, blockchain has this amazing potential to bring order to the complex world of compliance.
Yeah.
It's not just about cryptocurrencies, right?
No, definitely not.
It's about, building these really trustworthy systems to manage data and transactions across all kinds of industries.
Okay, so let's break this down. I get the basics of blockchain, but I think our listeners would love a little refresher. What exactly is blockchain, and why is it such a big deal for, transforming things?
Got it. Imagine, a digital ledger, right?
Okay.
But instead of being in one central location, it's spread across a whole network of computers. And this distributed ledger, it's constantly updated and synchronized. So every transaction is added, it's cryptographically secured, and it's linked to the one before it, creates this unbreakable chain.
So it's kind of the history you can't erase.
Exactly. And that's what makes blockchain so powerful for compliance. It's transparent and it's immutable.
Okay. So we're talking about a public record of every transaction that nobody can mess with.
Right.
That sounds like, a dream come true for auditors.
I bet.
Can you dive a little deeper into these ideas of transparency and immutability? Why do they matter so much for compliance?
Sure. So picture a regulator who can track every single step of a product's journey through the whole supply chain.
Wow.
From the manufacturer all the way to the person buying it, they've got this complete record, everything verified. That's the level of transparency we're talking about.
Wow.
And because the data is immutable, meaning you can't go back and change it, it really cuts down on the risk of fraud and manipulation.
Right. And the article even mentioned a pharmaceutical company that's using blockchain to track medication. That way they have this completely unalterable record.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example.
Yeah. But hold on. Aren't there different types of blockchains? How does that work when we're talking about compliance?
You got it. So you've got public blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're open for anyone to join, and they rely on these complex consensus mechanisms like proof of work or proof of stake to validate transactions and keep things secure.
So it's like a massive open source database that anyone can participate in.
You got it. And then you have private blockchains. These are permission networks that are controlled by a single organization or a group. They give more control over who can access data and how private it is, which makes them good for businesses, where confidentiality is a big deal.
So a company could use a private blockchain to manage its own supply chain or to track really sensitive financial data.
Exactly. And which type of blockchain they choose really depends on what they need it for and what their priorities are.
Got it. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. How does blockchain actually make compliance easier? The article talks about some pretty exciting possibilities.
Oh, yeah. One of the coolest areas is smart contracts.
I've heard about these.
These contracts, they basically execute themselves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they automatically enforce whatever agreement you set up. It streamlines everything, makes things faster, and lowers the risk of people fighting over stuff.
Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. Imagine a smart contract that releases a payment to a supplier, but only after the shipment is verified as delivered on the blockchain.
Okay.
That eliminates all that manual paperwork, speeds up transactions, and makes sure everyone's holding up their end of the deal.
Wow. No more chasing down invoices.
Exactly. And you can use this for tons of compliance processes, like automating regulatory reporting and making sure financial transactions follow KYC and AML rules.
And the article also mentioned something about streamlined identity verification. What's that about?
Yeah, think about all the times you've had to prove who you are, and had to share all this personal information.
Yeah.
Blockchain lets you create your own digital ID that's totally controlled by you. You can choose what information you share, and it can be verified instantly. No more waiting weeks for a background check or digging through old files.
So it's kind of like having this digital passport that you own and control.
Right. You decide who sees what information, and you can prove who you are without revealing stuff you don't want to.
Okay, so up until now, it sounds like blockchain's all sunshine and roses, but I know there's some challenges.
Oh, yeah, of course.
What are some hurdles we can't just ignore?
Well, one of the biggest is that the regulations around blockchain are still in flux.
Ah, I see.
Different countries are taking different approaches. It can be tough for businesses to figure out how to stay compliant, especially if they're working internationally.
So it's like trying to hit a target that keeps moving. Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a company that's launching a blockchain platform to track their supply chain, right?
Okay.
They might run into conflicting rules about data privacy and security in all the different countries where they get their products or sell them.
Oh, yeah.
It could create all sorts of compliance headaches and even some legal battles.
That's a real concern businesses need to be prepared for. What other challenges could hold back blockchain adoption for compliance?
Well, another one is privacy. Transparency is great, but what about sensitive information?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that confidential data is really protected on a public and open ledger?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's a complex issue that needs careful thinking and some creative solutions.
Yeah.
There has to be a good balance between transparency and keeping things private.
Does the article mention how companies are tackling this?
They do. One example is the use of zero-knowledge proofs. It's a cool cryptographic technique that lets someone prove they have certain information without actually revealing what that information is.
So it's like showing your ID to get into a bar without giving away your birth date or your address.
Exactly.
Clever.
Yeah. This type of tech is still being developed and refined, but it shows the potential for blockchain to offer both transparency and privacy.
Another challenge I see is integrating blockchain with systems companies are already using.
You're absolutely right.
A lot of businesses rely on older systems that weren't built with blockchain in mind. How can they make that work?
It is a valid concern. It can be a bit complex and expensive to integrate blockchain with legacy systems because you need specific expertise and, of course, investment. But there are solutions popping up all the time. Things like middleware platforms that act as this bridge between blockchain networks and older systems.
Okay, so they smooth out the data exchange and make things compatible. Makes sense.
Exactly. And as blockchain technology keeps getting better and better, we're going to see more tools and solutions that make it easier for companies to adopt it without needing to completely rip and replace their whole infrastructure.
Right. Makes sense. What about the ability of these blockchain networks to handle a lot of transactions? You know, can they actually deal with the sheer volume needed for all these compliance processes on a large scale?
Scalability, that's a major concern, especially for the public blockchains. Some, like Bitcoin, are known for, well, being kind of slow with transactions.
Yeah.
That can lead to delays and high fees.
Right.
But people are working on it. There are ongoing efforts to improve scalability with solutions like Layer 2 networks and sharding, which basically split the network into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So kind of like adding more lanes to a highway to handle more traffic.
You got it. And these advancements, they're critical to make sure blockchain can handle all those demands of large-scale compliance in the future.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the potential of blockchain for compliance and, of course, the challenges. What advice would you give to a company that's thinking about jumping into this world?
Well, I'd say the first thing is to be really clear about what your compliance needs are. What are the specific problems you're trying to solve, and how could blockchain actually help? You know, don't just jump on the bandwagon because it's trendy.
Don't use a hammer just because it's the only tool you have.
Right, exactly. Do your homework. Talk to experts and figure out if blockchain is the right solution for you.
Makes sense.
And once you've got a potential use case, you know, a specific area where you want to try it out, don't try to do everything at once.
Yeah, small steps.
Exactly. Pick a process or an area and run a pilot project. Test it out and see how it works in the real world. That'll give you valuable insights, help you spot any roadblocks, and you can refine your approach before you go all in.
It's like dipping your toes in the water before doing a cannonball.
Exactly. And another thing, don't try to do it all alone. Collaboration is key. Talk to other companies in your industry, tech providers, even regulators. Share what you're learning, talk about best practices and any concerns you have. The whole blockchain space is still evolving. Working together can help everyone adopt it faster and build a system that's strong and compliant.
It's like building a community around this shared technology. Learn from each other's experiences and figure out the challenges together.
Yeah, exactly. And education is super important. Invest in training your team, make sure they understand blockchain basics, how it affects compliance, and the best ways to use it. The more people who understand this tech, the better equipped you'll be to use it responsibly.
It's almost like learning a new language that everyone in the company needs to know.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, never forget about security. Blockchain itself is secure, but that doesn't mean applications built on it are bulletproof. You need strong security measures, thorough audits of your smart contracts, and constant vigilance against threats.
So it's like building this high-tech fortress, but leaving the gate wide open.
Right, exactly. You can't just set it and forget it. Security is an ongoing thing, and it's got to be a priority from day one.
Okay, so we've covered the opportunities, the challenges, and some strategies for navigating this blockchain world. I have to say, it's a lot to take in, but I'm really excited about the potential.
It is. It's a game changer, and we're just getting started.
Let's zoom in on one area where blockchain could have a huge impact. Identity verification. This is something that affects all of us, whether we're opening bank accounts, applying for jobs, or even just logging into a website.
It's really amazing to think about how blockchain can create a system for verifying identities that's more secure, streamlined, and puts the user in control. Imagine a world where you own and manage your digital ID, and it's stored securely on a blockchain.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You choose what information to share, and it's instantly verifiable, no more waiting around for weeks or digging through files for a background check.
Right, it's like that digital passport we were talking about. You control who sees what, and you can prove who you are without giving up unnecessary info.
You got it. And because it's on a blockchain, it can't be tampered with, stolen, or faked. It could be huge for preventing fraud and making sure things like voting are totally secure.
That's incredible. But let's be real. Is this actually happening, or is it just a futuristic dream?
It's definitely still early, but there's some really cool projects out there. For example, some countries are trying out blockchain-based digital ID systems for their citizens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it lets people access government services, vote securely, even prove their age without needing physical documents.
That's like having a digital driver's license that works for everything. All your important credentials stored in one place, accessible anytime from your phone.
Exactly. And in the private sector, companies are experimenting with blockchain for stuff like KYC compliance and finance, know your customer rules, and verifying age for online purchases.
The article highlighted this one project that really stood out to me. It's about helping refugees who've lost all their documents create a verified digital identity on a blockchain. It gives them access to aid and helps them rebuild their lives. It's a really powerful example of how this technology can empower people.
Absolutely. It's a perfect use case. It shows how blockchain can level the playing field and give people more control over their own identities.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. The basics of blockchain, how it can revolutionize compliance, make identity verification better. I'm both fascinated and inspired by what we've talked about.
It is pretty amazing to see how quickly it's developing and how it's being used to tackle real-world problems.
So why should our listeners care about all of this? How does blockchain and its impact on compliance affect them?
Well, blockchain is set to change everything: how businesses operate, how governments function, even how we interact online. Understanding blockchain and how it affects compliance isn't just for techies anymore. It's something everyone needs to know to stay ahead of the curve.
It's like learning a new language that everyone will be speaking in the future.
Exactly. And besides the practical side of things, there's also a bigger picture. Blockchain makes us think about trust, transparency, and how power is distributed in society. Those are questions worth thinking about no matter what your background is.
All right, to wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with something to ponder. Is blockchain the future of compliance? How might it impact your industry or your daily life?
It's a really interesting question. We encourage everyone to explore this further and think about the possibilities.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of blockchain and compliance. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep. It's really fascinating to think about all these emerging technologies and how they're going to shape the world around us. But I think we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about, the elephant in the room, or maybe the elephant in the blockchain.
The energy consumption.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. Some blockchain networks, especially the ones that use proof-of-work consensus mechanisms like Bitcoin, they use a lot of energy. And that's raised concerns about, how sustainable blockchain technology really is.
The article actually mentioned that Bitcoin mining alone uses as much energy as some small countries.
Yeah, it's a significant amount.
Yeah.
But the good news is the industry is really working on finding solutions. There's this big movement towards more energy-efficient consensus mechanisms, like proof of stake. It uses a lot less computational power to validate transactions.
So it's like trading in a gas guzzler for an electric car. Much better for the environment.
Exactly. And on top of that, switch to proof of stake, a lot of blockchain platforms are looking at other ways to be more sustainable. Things like using renewable energy for mining and investing in carbon offsetting programs.
It's great to see the industry taking steps to address this issue. Sounds like there's a lot of innovation happening.
There is. It's a really dynamic field, and we're only scratching the surface of what blockchain can do.
Well, I think we've covered a ton of ground today. We've talked about the basics of blockchain, how it could change compliance, make identity verification more secure, what it means for the metaverse, sustainability, and even future trends. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Me too. Blockchain is a game changer, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. As you go about your day, start paying attention to where blockchain might be working behind the scenes. It could be in the supply chain of your coffee, keeping your online banking secure, or even verifying the authenticity of that digital art you've been wanting to buy.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Challenge the assumptions you have and have those conversations about how this technology is going to impact us all.
Because in the end, the future of blockchain isn't just about the tech itself. It's about the choices we make and what kind of world we want to live in.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of blockchain and compliance. We hope you enjoyed it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.